In this video, I'm going to be going through the process of protein metabolism, also called amino acid metabolism. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I will be showing the main components of the process and also a homeostatic imbalance related to this metabolic pathway. First off, a protein gets broken down by a process called proteolysis, with the word lysis meaning break down. The protein is simplified back into amino acids. In proteolysis, enzymes catalyze the hydrolysis, or the breakdown of the peptide bonds. Without enzymes, it would take hundreds of years to break the peptide bonds. Next, the R group and the amino group get removed by deamination. This produces ammonia that will then be converted into urea and excreted by the kidneys. Once the R group and the amino group are removed, all that's left of the amino acid is the carboxyl group and the hydrogen. These parts are then converted to pyruvate, acetyl-CoA, or intermediates of the Krebs cycle. Where these parts go next depends on whether there is an ATP shortage or excess. If there is a shortage, they will go into the Krebs cycle, then oxidative phosphorylation to create more ATP using the electron transport chain. If there is an excess, then pyruvate is used to make glucose and stored as glycogen in the liver. And acetyl-CoA will be used to make fatty acids that will be stored as triglycerides in adipose tissue. This way, when there is a shortage of ATP, the glycogen and triglycerides being stored can be converted back into glucose or fatty acids to become components of the Krebs cycle, which can be then turned into ATP. So proteins can be used to create ATP immediately or stored for later use. On this next page, I'm going to show you a little bit of an overview of everything that I just talked about and kind of pull it all together so you can see the big picture. So the protein goes into proteolysis, where the enzymes catalyze the hydrolysis, or the breakdown of the peptide bonds. Then the R group and the amino group are moved in a process called deamination, where ammonia is produced and then it turns into urea. That's excreted by the kidneys. What's left over then turns into either pyruvate, acetyl-CoA, or other intermediates of the Krebs cycle. If there's a shortage of ATP, then they go through the cycle into oxidative phosphorylation and create ATP. If there's an excess, then pyruvate will go into glycolysis, forming glucose, and then stored as glycogen in the liver. If the glycogen is ever needed, then it will just turn back into glucose and go back through glycolysis, forming pyruvate, then to acetyl-CoA, and it will go through oxidative phosphorylation to create ATP. The same thing happens with acetyl-CoA. If there's an excess, then it will be saved as triglycerides stored in adipose tissue, and if it's ever needed, it will break down into acetyl-CoA, go through the Krebs cycle, then oxidative phosphorylation, and create ATP. So you can see that this process is pretty interchangeable based on what our body needs. It will either store it for later use or it will use it right away, but it will never waste energy. Now I'm just going to mention one homeostatic imbalance related to protein metabolism, that is phenylketonuria, or PKU. PKU is a genetic disorder where individuals have a defective enzyme, phenylalanine hydroxylase. Normally this enzyme, functioning normally, will break down phenylalanine and convert it to tyrosine. Without this enzyme, their body is unable to convert phenylalanine to tyrosine, and the phenylalanine cannot be metabolized, so the deaminated products accumulate in the blood and act as neurotoxins. This can cause brain damage. Typically, today, these consequences are uncommon because of early blood tests or urine tests in newborns. If the disorder is caught early, then the individual can be placed on a diet low in phenylalanine. Some symptoms of PKU are mental retardation, seizures, eczema, neurological and behavioral problems, but of course, these are only issues if left untreated. So in this picture we have two siblings, the older brother and the younger sister. The older brother has PKU, so when the younger sister was born, they had her tested and were able to put her on a low phenylalanine diet so that she never had any symptoms. You can see there's a huge difference between the little girl and the older brother just by the eye contact she's making with the camera and how he's holding his hands. He can't really sit in the chair. He has to have someone help him sit. So when PKU is not caught early enough, then you have irreversible brain damage, seizures, neurological and behavioral problems. But when it's caught, individuals can live a completely normal life. There are very few medications to help treat PKU. Mostly it's a change in diet. They have to have special drinks and shakes to help make up for the protein that they're not allowed to eat. But if they do follow their strict diet, then they can live normal lives. It's pretty interesting that one gene can affect one enzyme, which can completely change a person's quality of life. So when we talk about homeostatic imbalances, this is a pretty important one. We have a dysfunctional enzyme that's not breaking down phenylalanine. It's not creating tyrosine. It's causing neurotoxins to build up in the blood, mental retardation, and a whole other set of neurological and skin problems. So it's important to notice that even the small things can completely mess up the body.